If you can have a growth mindset, you have a far, far, far higher likelihood of being successful because you won't quit. Most people fail because they quit.
If you don't believe in your future, if you don't believe that you can achieve your dreams, you won't even start. And you will literally spiritually start to die.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, but also the first next level university mastermind for week 27.
Yep.
We are going to talk about the 10 most influential books for us and the lessons that we took away from them. Again, 3 years ago, I didn't even read books. So it's been an interesting 3 years for me, for sure.
It's kind of crazy because hindsight's 2020. When you look back on your journey, you can see what makes the biggest difference. One of the things we talk about often is the people you spend time with. And I'll never forget when I heard this one quote, you've heard me say it. Your future self is entirely predicated on the books you read and the people you spend time with. And it sounds overly simplistic, but it is such a very, very true statement. And I realize that more and more and more. And so how we're going to start off here is we have 10 books, 10 stories, 10 lessons, 10 questions to ask yourself. I'm going to kickstart it with The Compound Effect, because that's what I believe to be the most valuable book ever. Again, it's not a sexy book, okay? So The Secret is a very, very popular book that I believe sold like 500 million copies. Or maybe that was Chicken Soup for the Soul or something like that.
I get you a number.
One thing that I will say is that The Compound Effect is not necessarily as popular of a book, because whenever someone comes to me and asks me what my favorite book is, I usually say The Compound Effect. And almost every time they've never heard of the book. And I always find that fascinating because in my opinion, out of all the hundreds of books I've read, probably thousands at this point, it's by far the most valuable and the most practical. And it really is the fundamentals. So what I'm going to do to kickstart this, if you're all willing, is I'm going to read a passage from this book. And this is what I believe to be the most valuable passage. And the reason why The Compound Effect is first is not just because it's my favorite book, but because it actually is kind of the glue that will make sense shortly of like why it's first. And if you get this principle down of consistency, small positive choices over time, all the other ones are actually not relevant unless you can do the compound effect. So, Kevin's going to go through his favorite books and different stories, but if you can't apply them consistently, it's all for nothing. Okay. So here we go. It's interesting, man. I used to do the dramatic readings.
I know. Remember that? Blast from the past.
Blast from the past. Okay. This section is called Three Friends. Okay. Let's take three buddies who all grew up together. They live in the same neighborhood with very similar sensibilities. Each makes about $50,000 a year. They're all married and have average health and body weight, plus a little bit of that dreaded marriage flab, and that's in quotes. Friend number one, let's call him Larry, plods along doing as he's always done. He's happy, or so he thinks, but complains occasionally that nothing ever changes. Friend number two, Scott, starts making some small, seemingly inconsequential, positive changes. He begins reading 10 pages of a good book per day and listening to 30 minutes of something instructional or inspirational on his commute to work. Scott wants to see changes in his life, but doesn't want to make a fuss over it. He recently read an interview with Dr. Mehmet Oz in Success magazine and chose one idea from the article to implement in his life. He's going to cut 125 calories from his diet every day. No big deal. We're talking maybe a cup of cereal, trading that can of soda for a bottle of seltzer, switching from mayo to mustard on his sandwich. Doable. He's also started walking a couple thousand extra steps per day, less than a mile. No grand acts of bravery or effort, stuff anyone could do. But Scott is determined to stick with these choices, knowing that even though they're simple, he could also easily be tempted to abandon them. Friend number three, Brad, makes a few poor choices. He recently bought a new big screen TV so he can watch more of his favorite programs. He's been trying out the recipes he's seen on the Food Channel. The cheesy casseroles and desserts are his favorites. Oh, and he installed a bar in his family room and added one alcoholic drink per week to his diet. Nothing crazy. Brad just wants to have a little more fun. At the end of 5 months, no perceivable differences exist among Larry, Scott, or Brad. Scott continues to read a little bit every night and listen to audios during his commute. Brad is, quote unquote, enjoying life and doing less. Larry keeps doing as he always has. Even though each man has his own pattern of behavior, 5 months isn't long enough to see any real decline or improvement in their situations. Excuse me. In fact, if you charted the three men's weights, you'd see a rounding error of 0. they would look exactly equal. At the end of 10 months, we still can't even see noticeable changes in any of their lives. It's not until we get to the end of the 18th month that the slightest differences are actually measurable in these three friends' appearances. But at month 25, we start seeing real, measurable, visible differences. At month 27, we see an expansive difference. And by month 31, the change is startling. Brad is now fat while Scott is trim. By simply cutting 125 calories a day in 31 months, Scott has lost 33 pounds. For the math, 31 months equals 940 days. 940 days times 125 calories equals 1,117 or 117,500 calories. And then that equates to 33.5 pounds. Okay, Brad ate only 125 more calories per day in that same time frame, and he gained 33.5 pounds. Now he weighs 67 pounds more than Scott, but the differences are more significant than weight. Scott's invested almost 1,000 hours reading good books and listening to self-improvement audios. By putting his newly gained knowledge into practice, he's earned a promotion and a raise. Best of all, his marriage is thriving. Brad, he's unhappy at work and his marriage is on the rocks. And Larry is pretty much exactly where he was 2.5 years ago, except now he's a little bit more bitter about it. The phenomenal power of the compound effect is that simple. The difference between people who employ the compound effect for their benefit compared to their peers who allow the same effect to work against them is almost inconceivable. It looks miraculous, like magic or quantum leaps. After 31 months or 31 years, the person who uses the positive nature of the compound effect appears to be, quote unquote, an overnight success. In reality, his or her profound success was the result of small, smart choices completed consistently over time. Now, the reason I kickstarted with that is because in this industry, and Kevin and I talk about all these different principles and all these different facets of life, but if you can't create positive habits daily, there is nothing we can do for you. There's nothing anyone can do for you. John Maxwell said recently in a speech, he said, "There's nothing I can do for an undisciplined person." He also said that I once heard a man say the following quote, and I love this quote: "I spent my entire life working to be an overnight success." And so to kickstart off here, that's the three friends. We all know someone in each of those categories. Amy, I want to give you a shout out. You became the positive small choices over time 3 years ago, and you just graduated recently with a dream come true. And it's really easy to look back and go, oh, it really was just my consistency over time and getting around great people and starting to read books and these positive habits. But all along the way, a lot of times you felt like you were losing. This is the most elusive thing in the world. You felt like you were losing for the last 3 years until you finally won. And it's like, there is no more valuable concept in my opinion. So to go on to number 2 here, before we do, I want you to ask yourself a simple question. Goal number 1 is start the train. Goal number 2 is make sure the train never loses momentum. Okay? Now, where have you lost momentum or quit in your life where you should be igniting the power of the compound effect and making sure that that train never loses momentum?
Fire.
Thank you, man.
Fire, like an old school dramatic reading. So just to touch on that quickly, we have a book club. It was the Hyperconscious book club. Now it's going to be the Next Level book club, I think. We'll see what Darren wants to do. But we are reading a book that's going to be on this list. And I was talking about the fact that I only listen to 40 minutes of a book a day. Now, 40 minutes is not a super long time. You can watch anything on Netflix for 40 minutes, right? But if you multiply that out over a year, I think it's like 223 hours. So that's almost 10 full days of knowledge, okay? Your habits, the biggest difference between the person you are and the person you want to be is your habits. That is the mantra I live by. So I second what Alan said. All right, second book, The 5 Love Languages. You guys saw us do a live mastermind on this. I don't even know how many months ago it was.
Say 3 months.
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
But that was such a game-changing book for me because, like most people, I was trying to be successful in my relationship with luck. And I think so many people are. I actually had several people reach out to me this weekend asking for relationship advice. And it was very clear to me that these people didn't really have any systems in their relationships. And it's clear because they're definitely not as successful as they could be. So I realized very quickly, and this is in the book, that you love others the way that you want to be loved. Okay. So if your number one love language is physical touch, you're probably trying to shower your partner with the same thing, physical touch, or maybe it's gift giving, or maybe it's quality time. But you'll never know that it's not necessarily landing unless you either read this book. Well, I would say until you read this book and then make it a part of your relationship. This is part of Alan's check-in. This is part of my check-in with Darren every week. It is an absolute game changer. So at the end of the day, just like when you're speaking, you can literally be speaking a different language to somebody you love, and you might not have any idea, and they might not have any idea. You might just feel like you're not connecting, or you might not feel like the passion's there, the communication's there, or you might not feel like you have a bright future. A lot of that is because you're not speaking the correct language. So my question for you would be, are you relying purely on luck to have the successful relationship that you're dreaming of, or are you putting in work? Are you reading books like this? Are you listening to the masterminds where we have Prepo Toplitsky on? He's talking all about relationships. If you want to save money, you do research on investing. If you want to lose weight, you do research on fitness. What are you doing for research for your relationship?
Super powerful. On this one, I put massive effort towards the wrong language, love languages in the past, and I was wondering why I wasn't winning. And now when I first started dating Emilia, I literally asked her, and I have a flashcard in my flashcards are over there. So normally they're in my pocket. But one of them is Emilia's top 5 cup fillers. So we got really, really specific. So we expanded on the 5 love languages to be really specific, and they're very in-depth actually. But I remember I was like, okay, I'm done putting a lot of effort towards things that don't matter in every area of my life, not just my relationship. And it's been such a game changer. Number 3, it's interesting that we're doing it in this order because you have the compound effect. So first of all, if you're not consistent in your relationship and with the love languages, you'll feel that and you won't have the positive connection and love and the fulfillment and the abundance. Then if you're doing the wrong things, you'll also lose. Essentialism. So I want to also give you the books and the authors. So the compound effect is by Darren Hardy. The 5 love languages is by Gary Chapman. And you guys can put in the chat if you want any of these as well. And I'm pretty sure Amy and Natalie know the names and authors. And if not, they can look them up. Essentialism is by Greg McKeown. Essentialism changed my life because I consider myself a very hardworking person. But what happens when you're hardworking and disciplined is that you just keep dumping more and more and more on yourself. And so for me, the tagline of that book is the disciplined pursuit of less but better. Again, I'm going to say that again. The disciplined pursuit of less, but better. So instead of majoring in minor things and chasing all the extremities, you really do need to hone in on what actually matters. And I'm going to give you a tangible example. So in my system of success, I have what's called MVTs, most valuable tasks, okay? And I have a list of these. Amy and I both do, actually. And we rate them now from 0 to 10 in terms of order of most importance. Because yes, everything matters, but not everything matters equally. So I had one at the bottom of my list as a rating of a 2 from 0 to 10 in terms of importance. And one was at the top of my list as a rating of 10. Now, before I had this rating system, these would have all just been MVTs, tasks I have to get done. A lot of us just write out lists, but then we don't prioritize the most important ones and make sure those get done. So the first thing you got to understand with essentialism is you're not going to ever get it all done. The moment you finish a task list is the moment you're going to dump a bunch more tasks on there. So get rid of this idea that I'm going to get it all done. Number 2, prioritizing your tasks is more important than getting the tasks done at first. Okay? So I will give you a tangible example of this. So my ex-girlfriend, her name was Courtney. I have had some very mirror moments lately of my past relationships and how I handled myself in those relationships and different conditionings from my past. And I'm not going to get into all this, but I've done a lot of healing lately. And I've realized that some of my conditioning from my childhood was less than ideal. And it affected my relationships in a negative way. And while I don't think that I was a bad boyfriend necessarily by any means, I do have some moments that I would love to apologize to Courtney for. Okay. So on my to-do list, there's reach out to Courtney with a sincere, honest ownership and apology, telling her that, listen, I with this higher sense of awareness, I realized that, maybe I said some things that hurt you that I didn't realize were going to hurt you that way, this, that, and the other thing. Okay, now that's a genuine desire of my heart. That's a task I want to get done and I intend to get done. But simultaneously, my current girlfriend, Emilia, asked me to help her create a workout plan so that she could have more certainty in the gym because we go to the gym together, But when we don't go together, she doesn't know necessarily what workouts to do. So then she sometimes doesn't go, because if you don't have certainty around what workouts to do, sometimes it creates that bottleneck of not even going. You have an aversion to that which you don't understand. And so here's the thing. What if I had a task list that was not prioritized? And what if I'm DMing Courtney, which is a great thing, to apologize while my current girlfriend is waiting on a workout plan? Okay? So many of us are guilty of this. I am too. If I'm DMing a past relationship and asking for, or connecting there, and which I have permission from Emilia to do, she encourages me to do that, while I haven't gotten her the workout plan, that I would argue that's the biggest mistake ever. Invest in the major thing first. So Emilia's workout plan was a 10, and that's at the top of my to-do list. And the DM message to Courtney is a 2. Now, that doesn't mean that the DM message to Courtney is not important. It's just not as important as the other things that need to take priority. And that's what essentialism is about. Get rid of the nonsense. When I started doing this, I actually have to do this again and prune the rose bush. It's a great analogy. If you don't prune the rose bush, the roses cannot flourish. You have to constantly prune the rose bush. And so the question I want you to ask yourself is, where am I majoring in minor things? Where am I spending massive time and effort and concern when it's not that important? And most likely, by the way, this is someone else's agenda. You probably have a lot of things that other people have required of you and asked of you. And every time you're doing someone else's needs rather than your own, you're most likely majoring in minor things.
I think I'm going to leave that. That's good. That's enough.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. I can't really add that much to it. There's a reason that Alan and I kind of only do like certain things, because not that we're not necessarily good at other things, but I want to be the best at the limited things I do, right? 4 or 5 things, the things that I really want to excel at.
Can you just dilute what those are, just so everyone knows?
Yeah.
This is an essentialism life that Kevin's designed.
Speaking, podcast coaching. That's kind of it. Fitness and relationships.
That's basically it.
Yeah,
right.
That's the
more you narrow your circle of concern, the better you're going to get at your genius zone. Everything that you're doing outside of your genius zone, you need to consistently prune the rose bush.
Prune it.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm going to tell you a story before I tell you the name of the book, because sometimes we break the rules.
So
when I don't remember how old I was. I should probably remember that. I think I was probably like 24. So we live in Massachusetts. I went to the Massachusetts Fire Academy because I was an on-call firefighter for Uxbridge, Massachusetts. And I did very well with the written tests because, studying wasn't super hard. A lot of the questions made a lot of sense. Like, I paid attention. It was very good. But when it got to my opportunity to take my practical exam, which you have 2 practical exams. You have one where there's a live fire, that you're in a room that's on fire and you have to do certain things with a hose. You have to adjust the nozzles. You have to do these different things. And then there's also another practical where you tie off certain knots. You have to crawl through some dark rooms. You have to put your gear on in a certain amount of time, like different things, just to make sure that you're ready for live fire drills. So I passed the written exam fine. I think I had one of the higher grades in the class, actually, when it came to the written exam. But we get to the practical. This is the non-fire one, so there's no fire here. And one of the things I had to do was tie a knot around a hose with a handle that I had never seen before, okay? I literally failed. I failed that, and I failed something else. So out of the group of Uxbridge people that went, I was the only one who didn't pass the test. Brutal. Like, absolutely terrible. Now, the lesson from that is I didn't have a growth mindset. So the book we're talking about is Mindset by Dweck. I didn't have a growth mindset. So when we were going through this fire academy, I had all the opportunity in the world to ask questions, but I never did because I was afraid of getting laughed at. I was afraid of failing. I didn't want to look stupid. I never wanted to try out different things just to try them out because I didn't want to look bad. I had such a fixed mindset. It's not even funny. Like, the person I am today would not even recognize that person. That person wouldn't recognize me. Okay? The lesson from this, if you can have a growth mindset, and podcasting is a great example of that too. Like, I'm sure we have or we will screw something up in this episode because we've done a ton of rebranding today. We've literally, today was a strange day. But now we're at the point where we can say, look, it happened. Like, you made a mistake. It is what it is. Fail forward. If you can have a growth mindset, you have a far, far, far higher likelihood of being successful because you won't quit. Most people fail because they quit. That's the reason why they fail. They don't actually fail, they quit. They stop showing up. If you can continue to show up, you have a infinitely higher percentage of success. So my question for you is, what are you doing on the day-to-day? Every single day, what are you doing to grow that mindset even more? Are you failing forward? Are you taking failures as lessons? Are you taking the lesson and leaving the failure behind? Every single day, if you can increase this a little bit, your life will look exponentially different.
This is very synchronistic because the next one is about growth. The book is the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And we actually didn't necessarily plan the syntax as well as, at least not consciously, but this is working out perfectly because growth mindset is critical. Here's the one thing I'll say too. You would never even pick up a book called The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth if you didn't have a growth mindset. The problem is you wouldn't even see it. You wouldn't even notice it, okay? You probably, if you don't believe in something, you're not even going to pick up on it, right? And so in The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell, by the way, it talks about the law of trade-offs, okay? Now, this is a very hard thing to do for people, and I struggle with this very much too, very much. The pain of a trade-off comes first. The benefit of the trade-off doesn't come until way later. So, for example, when I wanted to quit drinking, and I had a lot of pain up front of stopping drinking because most of my associations liked to spend time with me while I drank. Okay? Recently, I came into this as well. So if you're aware of this and you listen to the show often, you probably are aware of this. I'm moving into a higher ticket business consulting role with my coaching. That's been very hard for me because, as you knew, recently I had 10 full-time clients and they've been getting so much of my time and energy and attention, and that's been wonderful, and I absolutely adore coaching them. I've had to genuinely decide in advance, okay, I'm going to have to create a void and let certain clients slip away, which is cash flow that's benefiting this business. It's a beautiful thing, in order to create the time and space to then go get higher ticket clients. Recently, I spoke to a group of high school students, and I met a woman by the name of Johanna. Johanna is a high school teacher, and she had me come in and speak. We had gotten on the phone for a free call probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, and she had asked me for coaching. She wanted me to coach her and be her coach. I ended up sending her over to Emilia, since Emilia is starting up her coaching program, which is absolutely beautiful. But this was actually really hard for me. This was a trade-off. I had to sit there and go, okay, Alan, this woman is incredible. You believe in her. She has such a good heart. She's so focused on gratitude. She's one of the best teachers you've ever seen or met. And I felt very pulled to help her. Okay. And I had to say, okay, let me say no to this opportunity and pass it over to Emilia, which is a win, knowing that Johanna will be very well taken care of, probably even better than me in some ways because of what she's going through relationally. And I have to create that. Saying no to a great opportunity was very difficult. But if you aren't willing to say no to a great opportunity, how are you going to be able to get to even a better opportunity? And so that was a painful thing for me, of basically saying, listen, no, I appreciate that you want to coach with me, but I got to say no because I'm going to go to a higher tier that honestly Johanna cannot afford right now. Okay? The pain of the trade-off comes first. Whether you have to give up a past relationship in order to get a great one. I had to give up a decent relationship to get a great one. We've all been there. Okay? The problem is the pain comes first. And you don't see the benefit until months, sometimes years later. And I know we can all relate to this if you think back. Okay? So the question I want you to ask yourself, and this is such a hard question to really sit with and answer, and I want you to answer it with your intuition. Being truthful with yourself is everything. Where are you avoiding the pain of a trade-off? Where are you accepting good instead of going for great? And we all have an area of our life right now where we're doing that. And for me, for a long time, I was accepting good coaching clients with good price point for when I could work with potential business owners that are executives, and I can have a bigger impact that way. And that doesn't mean that I can't still serve my clients through other people. As a matter of fact, I've referred a lot of people to Bianca. I've referred people to Kevin. I've referred people to Emilia. So all of them are still getting served, but it doesn't necessarily have to be by me because I know I can have a bigger impact elsewhere where my math mind will be able to flourish.
Very similar to Alan. I went through the same exact thing of like, when I started mindset coaching, I think I started at $50 a week. Like I was literally charging $50 a week for mindset coaching. And now I have like a full podcast agency. It sounds great and it is great. I love doing it. But along the way, I had to say like, look, I can't do that for the price that I was doing it anymore. My time is taken elsewhere. I literally have somebody who wants to pay me several $100s to edit podcast episodes. I'm going to do a couple, but it's not in the business for me right now. I have other clients that I want to serve at an even higher level. It's part of it. It really is. You can't hang on to good and get great at the same time, unfortunately or fortunately.
Yeah, it's the phoenix from the ashes. Your old self, to some extent, has to burn down for the new one to rise. And we all go through these cycles. Another good analogy is the snakeskin. Just remember, it hurts. It actually hurts to trade off. To trade something good to go for great hurts every time. And anyone who tries to tell you it doesn't, I think is full of it. I gotta say.
They jeffing? Yeah, they jeffing. All right. If you were in the Hyperconscious book club for our first book, I believe this was our first book. This is The Biology of Belief by the one and only Bruce Lipton. So if you guys have been listening to us, maybe you know this. If you don't, I used to have like really bad anxiety. Like we were in Florida and I had several panic attacks. I was literally lying on the floor thinking I was going to die because I didn't know what anxiety was. But the biology of belief talks all about how your brain can actually, and I'll use this word loosely because I don't know the exact science behind it, but it can heal you. Okay. We take medicines to help with headaches. We take medicines to help with sickness, with illness. What's the word I'm looking for when there's the, hold on. You take a pill, but if you don't take placebo effect, I can never think of that. The placebo effect, like it's literally proven that there are certain medicines that actually don't do anything. Antidepressants are actually like pretty high on that list. Like a lot of antidepressants don't really even do that much physiologically. But if you can for me, anxiety, I never took any medicine for anxiety. I literally, every morning, I write that I don't have anxiety. I've done this for the last year. My anxiety is gone. I don't get anxious before these. I don't get anxious before podcasts. I was getting anxious before all the time. Every time I would travel, I was anxious. It was brutal. Your throat closing up, that kind of anxiety, your heart beating, you're sweating, that kind of stuff. Your thoughts are way more powerful than people give credit for. And I think one of the reasons is because I can't charge you to help you change your thoughts. I can charge you to take this medicine. Okay? We're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but
that was fine.
I appreciate that. Understand that your mind is unreasonably powerful. And until you believe that you can use it in a positive way, it's going to be very hard for you to do it. So my question for you is, what are you thinking of now? And are you getting more of it? Right? Are you thinking of the negative things in life? You're probably going to get more of them. Are you thinking of the positive things in life? You're probably going to get more of them. In this book, he literally talks about people healing diseases. Mm-hmm. And there's also another, Tara and I watched this. It's called Heal on Netflix. Bruce Lipton is in it. There's a bunch of other people too, but it's about people who literally heal diseases with positive thought. Does it work for everybody? I don't know, but it's on Netflix, so you can watch it for yourself.
Have you guys ever met someone who says, I get sick all the time? And then go figure they're always sick? Now, I bet you've met someone who says, I never get sick. And I bet you they rarely get sick. This is a thing. From the moment I read The Biology of Belief, which was literally 5 years ago, I have gotten sick less than a handful of times. And I used to get sick regularly. I used to have chronic sinus infections. It was a whole thing. That book changed my life so much. Your thoughts matter so much. If you believe you will get sick, you will get sick. If you believe you have bad luck, you will have bad luck because that's what you're looking for. If you believe people are inherently evil, you're going to see every reason why that's true. And by the way, there's a million reasons. Try not to look for that. Believe people are good and you'll see the good in others. Believe that you're happy, healthy, and wealthy, and that stuff will be focused on and therefore it will improve. Atomic Habits,
which we're reading right now
in the book club.
So
Atomic Habits by James Clear is my fourth favorite book of all time. And there's one quote in it that you've probably heard me say that changed my life, because I used to be so focused on a simple quote that was kind of like my own thing, which was like, if you don't have huge ambition, you have no reason to grow. This is the new quote. And this is James Clear's quote, not mine. You will never rise to the level of your ambition. You will actually fall to the level of your systems. Okay? You can want to be the best bodybuilder in the world. You can want to be the best podcaster in the world. You can want to be, a millionaire. But if you don't have the financial, so I'll just use millionaire as an example. You can intend to be a millionaire. And all of us can sit there and say, okay, I want to be a millionaire. But do you have a financial system that will ensure that you actually get there? Okay. If you save $100 a week every week for the rest of your life and you live 50 more years, there's no question you can be a millionaire if you invest it right. It's just math. But who's actually going to do that and stick with it? Okay. The system matters so much. Now, I want to also point out that the system won't get created until the why power is chosen. So I'll use fitness as an example. So a lot of you know early on in my journey, I said, you know what? I didn't chase my dreams. I got in a car accident. I'm filled with all this regret. Let me go all in on my dreams. One of them is to be a speaker. One of them is to be a podcaster. One of them is to be a fitness model. When I went all in on fitness modeling, I said, I'm going to be the greatest natural aesthetic men's physique fitness model. Okay. That's the goal. That's the ambition. That's great. Okay. That's in your heart and you want that. And that's wonderful. The system underneath it, sleep, hydration, nutrition, training, mobility, those 5 pillars that I've talked about many times. Okay. That's the system. Here's the problem. I would never have created the system until I had the goal. Okay. So you need to have the goal, but you won't actually get to the goal until your system underneath it is what's going to take you there. And so the last question I want you to ask yourself for this section, number 7 on atomic habits, is where are your goals and systems outside of alignment? I'll tell you a very, very, very quick story. I had a fitness client one time who wanted to have a physique. You've probably heard me say this. I remember him saying, I want this physique. This is my dream physique. And it was an extremely famous, very big, jacked bodybuilder. And he said, but I really don't want to weight train. And I said, and I mean this respectfully, forget it then. To my awareness, it's my job to coach you, raise your awareness. I don't think you can get a physique like that without weight training. So you might as well just forget it. Or you can say, do I want that goal enough to where I'm going to fall in love with weight training? And then go off to the races. So where do you have a system that is incongruent with a goal? A lot of us have goals, but no system underneath it. Some people have systems, but no goal, so the system doesn't get perfected.
Going back to the 5 love languages, you can literally create a system out of the 5 love languages, and you can make sure that your relationship is succeeding at a higher level.
Right.
Like that's almost just as, if not a more important takeaway than the one I gave, because you can systematize emotions. That's kind of what you're doing when you systematize the 5 love languages. You can focus on what emotions and what feelings your partner likes more.
Right.
Number 8. This is a classic. Many, many people have read this.
Oh, yeah?
I think this is one of the first ones I ever read.
Had to make the list.
Should I say it? Should I tell people what it is, or should I just keep? Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill spent 20-odd years interviewing the most successful people in the world. Back then, it was steel tycoons and railroad and oil people, and basically taking their knowledge and their lessons and putting it into this extremely, extremely powerful book. One of the biggest takeaways for me is the power of masterminds. So Alan and I spoke on the same stage in Florida as Evan Carmichael. When we went out to California for the Brendan Burchard event, we had a very nice place to stay. We got filet mignon cooked for us, right? And we had access to a gym, and we had somebody to go to the event with. All of these relationships were built through masterminds. Okay, so Eddie Pinero of Your World Within, he's actually going to be on one of these coming up. But we had a mastermind with him and somebody else. We ended up speaking on a stage with Evan Carmichael because of that mastermind, because of that friendship. Kim and Spike Spencer, they have both been on our podcast together and separately. We literally stayed at their house. I never met Kim or Spike until we literally stayed at their house. We watched The Greatest Showman. We cried. I got a little drunk on whiskey. And then we went to the gym the next day. The power of masterminds, if you can get around people who are ahead of you, who are doing what you want, who are in a similar space, who have a different perspective, your life will change so much. Mm-hmm. And like, even what we do with Dave Meltzer and Evan Carmichael, that's a little bit of a mastermind. It's more of a mentor session, but it is a mastermind. Mm. We're taking our thoughts, we're taking their thoughts, we're mixing them up, and we're seeing what comes out. I can say with confidence that masterminds have changed my life just as much, if not more than anything else. That's where I got the idea for the high ticket podcast coaching that I'm doing. Like I probably wouldn't have Podstrong, the agency that I have, if it wasn't for masterminds. So my question for you is, besides this, if you guys are in here, you're trying to get to your next level, whatever that is. Besides this, what else are you doing to build mastermind-like relationships in your life? Do you have weekly calls with friends who are in the same arena as you? Are you going to events? It's kind of hard right now, but there are a lot of virtual events. Like, what are you doing every single day to get better when it comes to masterminds? The relationships that you build will change your life, and you never know what's going to happen in a year, 5 years, 10 years. You just never know.
We mastermind every time we get into the studio. And a lot of times after this, we have a meeting after this with the team where we'll mastermind about what went well, what didn't. And I can look at this, right? And it's like, you've got Kim, you've got Spike, you've got Eddie P. You know, we had that early one with Matt and Nate. You can connect the dots looking back. And it's so obvious that these dreams manifested out of conversations with great people. Every single time. We're at Froyo with Catherine Nash in Delray Beach.
Yes.
And Kevin's like, I'm thinking about starting a podcast agency. I'm going to start doing podcast coaching. And Catherine and I am talking to Kevin about what that could become. Okay. And before that, we're with Eddie and T-Mac, and they're talking about how he can do it. Kevin had me tell him he could do it. Catherine tell him he could do it. T-Mac tell him he could do it. Eddie tell him he can do it. And then he believed enough to actually take that first step. And he bought T-Mac's equipment at the beginning. We helped Alex Hinkle start his show, the Think Tank podcast. It's interesting because from this perspective, it's so obvious that conversations with great people is what stems everything. I'm sitting on the dock in Otis, Massachusetts with Emilia. And she says, why don't you start a consulting firm? You love consulting. You love businesses. You plan on buying and selling businesses. Why don't you start a consulting firm where you train consultants on how to help other businesses that you believe in? Boom. Now, when that happens, 5, 10, 15 years from now, and the whole world knows what that company is, they won't know that it was a conversation on the dock with Emilia. Okay? I will, though. Right? All of you will now. But that's the thing. How often are you having those conversations? Those 5 pillars I told you about in fitness, those all came from me masterminding with Nate Smithson for years. He taught me everything I know, and I innovated on top of it. Okay? So this is a huge one. If you're not doing masterminds consistently, you are Jeffin. And you got to get around more of them. I can't even tell you how many masterminds Kevin and I have been in the last 4 years. It's so many.
And now it's like, number one, now we have our own mastermind. Right?
Which came from a mastermind.
And I've been on other masterminds to talk about whether it's mindset or whether it's podcasting. Like, I learned, or I got revealed to me the ability to do the podcast coaching at a mastermind. Now I get brought on other masterminds to talk about it so I can help other people do that. Rinse and repeat. Like, the things that you know have to be from somebody else, right? Like, that's how it works. For the most part.
Yeah.
If you can increase the people in your life that you're masterminding with, like, I don't ever want you to have to hide your dreams, because if you do, you're not really masterminding.
Powerful. Samantha Skelly came on the show. We all do. Mark Metry does breath work. You do breath work. I do breath work. I think Amy's about to do breath work. Like, Tiff's about to do breath work. It all came from this mastermind.
You will cry.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Feels
been
good,
unbelievably healing. And that's one conversation, one mastermind. So you got to set that up, make sure it's week to week, stay consistent. And we got a lot of time left.
We're going to be all right.
We're going to be good. Okay.
We're going to be all right.
Oh, number 9?
Number 9.
Okay. So this book, you've probably heard of it, but it's not, so many of these books are not like sexy books.
Almost none of them.
Almost none of them. And it's interesting because
I wanted to put Harry Potter on here, but Alan wouldn't let me. So, and I haven't read it, but
yeah,
I thought it would connect.
Let me.
I thought it would.
I love Harry Potter, just saying. Okay. A Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl. Okay. This is a little book that is unbelievably powerful. Viktor Frankl was in World War II. He was a prisoner of war. Not prisoner of war, rather. He was in a concentration camp. He was in several concentration camps. And he was a psychologist. And the only way that he could find meaning to his suffering, which is beyond what any of us can fathom, and I highly recommend you read this book. It will change your perspective forever. And I've read this book literally dozens of times. I used to fall asleep to it on Audible constantly. But basically, the one takeaway from this book that was the most powerful for me is that he noticed a common pattern amongst the prisoners that didn't survive and the prisoners that did. Now, there's this one story where he had a friend inmate who thought for sure, was convinced that by Christmas that year, the Allies were going to win the war and that they were going to be able to go home and have Christmas with their family. Okay? And this prisoner, was so convinced that if they could just survive till Christmas, that they would go home and they'd be free, they'd find their wife and kids, and they'd be reconciled. When that didn't happen and the war didn't end, this prisoner gave up, stopped taking care of themselves, stopped finding the opportunities. And again, you got to read the book because I'm not doing it justice, but this prisoner stopped caring about their future. They stopped having hope for their future, and therefore they stopped finding every opportunity they could to survive. Because even amongst a concentration camp, Viktor Frankl talks about how there are actually opportunities to survive. You can ration your bread. You can make deals with the cooks to make sure they give you more of the bottom of the soup with the meat and the veggies or whatever, the potatoes. But if you don't have hope for the future, in other words, if you think you're going to die there, no matter what you do, why would you go out of your way to invest more? And this is all subconscious. And so here's the main takeaway. And I see this with people a lot because I have a 70-year-old mentor who literally is more excited for his future than most people. And I find it fascinating. He's more pumped for his future than people in their 30s. And it always bothers me because I know the implications of that. So if you are not excited for your future, you will not invest hard work today to make it brighter. If you don't believe in your future, if you don't believe that you can achieve your dreams, you won't even start. And you will literally spiritually start to die. And this is what Viktor Frankl talks about. Right now, Kevin and I, if there's anything about us that you value and you think we're passionate and loving and hardworking and any of those virtues, okay, and this is not about us, remember, so many of those virtues are predicated on the future we're working towards. Virtues in the present are predicated on the future you believe in. Period. People who don't have dreams don't have as much virtue because they don't have to. Okay? If you have a big dream to serve more people, be a better person, have an extraordinary relationship, be financially free and abundant, you're going to have to develop virtue today and character today in order to get there. But if you don't believe it's possible, you won't even invest. When you don't believe in a brighter future, it's a lot easier to go to drugs. It's a lot easier to have vices and alcohol and escapes and Netflix. Okay? And so that's what Viktor Frankl's book will do for you way better than I can possibly do. But the thing I want you to ask yourself is this. What dreams do I need to create in my future in order to force myself to have the virtues I want to possess today? Okay, work ethic is a virtue, in my opinion. And I have work ethic because of my dreams. If I didn't have any dreams, trust me, before my car accident, my work ethic was not nearly what it is now. I used to play Call of Duty in between sales calls. Okay, I would never do that now, not because Call of Duty is not fun, but because now I'm not trying to hit someone else's quota. Okay, so where can you apply that in your life? Where are you not having dreams and you want this virtue now, but not a dream connected to it?
It's easier to make progress when you have purpose. Right? We were talking about this, you guys have heard the story of me sitting on the edge of the hotel bed in New Jersey, suicidal. What I don't tell people is that wasn't the first time I was suicidal. That was like the third or fourth probably. I didn't have purpose. I felt stuck. I felt trapped. I was only basing my life off how that day felt. I didn't have anything to look forward to, right? I was living for the day. Now it's like, today's Monday. It's a long day. It's my favorite day. I love Mondays. I don't ever complain, oh, it's Monday or, oh, it's Sunday. I don't care what day it is. I'm doing my thing. I'm doing my thing. I have purpose. I'm purpose driven. I'm able to impact. I'm able to see you guys. That's what it's all about. And has it been as difficult? Sure. It's been very difficult, but I'm looking at what could be, not what is. And I think that's the biggest difference when it comes to purpose. So the universe provided me with this last one here. Recently, Alan and I were talking about losing friends along the journey. We've talked to Dave about that. He puts it in, amazing terms. But I never had a way to sum it up that didn't sound super hardcore. And I don't want it to sound hardcore because I don't believe that you have to leave people behind. But John Maxwell made this list twice because he is incredible. In the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, he talks about lifters, versus leaners. The people in your life are either lifting you, themselves, and other people up, or they're most likely the leaners. Now, I have no issue with somebody coming to me and say, hey, I'm having a rough day. Can you be there for me? That's totally fine. But I used to have people in my life that it was always that. It was, they'd call me crying on a Monday, and I'd set them in the right direction and say, hey, this is what I would do. You know, if you're miserable at work, let's start looking for a new job. I understand the circumstances aren't ideal, but let's make progress. And nothing would ever change. That person wasn't a lifter. That person was a leaner. Now, that person supported me, but I support myself at this point. I have Darren, I have Alan, I have the team. The people around me support me. I don't need any more support. I want people that are going to lift me and others up. So somebody close to me was in this terrible relationship, and this person has always been a lifter. She didn't realize how much of a lifter she actually was until she was chained down, or after she got out of this chained down relationship with this person who was leaning on her. Like, he's a leaner. A lot of people are. Unfortunately, a lot of people are. And if you're in this space, if you're in this mastermind, if you listen to the podcast, you're not. You're a lifter. And you're here to find more lifters. That's what we're all about. So my question is, are you relying on leaners to help you lift others? Because if you are, you're probably playing a losing game, and I would reallocate time. We talk about that so often, but that's been one of the hardest parts of the journey, is like, we want to lift all of you guys. I want to lift every single person that listens to the show. I want to lift every single one of my clients. I want to lift my girlfriend. I want to lift Alan. I want to lift the team. Everybody I come in contact with, I want to lift. But if I have people who are leaning on me, it's going to be a lot harder for me to do that, because I'm not going to be able to give you guys the attention and the energy that I need to. Now, again, there's always going to be people leaning along the way, but I would say go by the percentage. If somebody's only calling you when they need to lean on you, that might not be the best use of your energy. I had somebody ask me, and I love this person. I have nothing but love for this person. But he said, can you be the person who you used to be for me, the person I could call when I was in a pinch? And I said, no, I can't, because I either help you and I put my energy into that, or I help thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of people. That's the path I chose. I want to help lifters. I want to be a lifter. And if I'm around leaners and they're taking my energy, I'm not going to be able to do that.
And that was fire, man. Strong work. I think this is a powerful one, because we've all kind of been around people that are both. And I think that if the intention is to be a lifter, you're going to be more inclined to get around other people who are lifters. And the other thing that I want to say about this too, and this is something I've never shared publicly, I don't think, but I felt compelled to, because I think it's important. Now, this is, again, not about Kevin and I. I want you to apply this to you. But like, Kevin used to make $100 an hour, more than 40 hours a week, every week, forever. And now he wasn't necessarily lifting other people up. He was doing whatever he had to do to make that money. And I'll segue over here to a quick story about me, which was like, I got offered $250,000 to be a VP of sales for $1 billion tech company. Okay. And I was literally landscaping on the side for 4 hours for $100 to pay my bills, because I believe in this that much. And I knew that if I went back to the cushy income, I might not come back. We care about lifting other people up so much that we have turned down so many unbelievable opportunities. And there were some serious financial struggles in Kevin and I's journey, but we knew that we would rather fail here at something we believe in than succeed at something we don't. And it's been really hard, because when I say $250,000 VP of sales, that stuff garners a lot of respect, okay, in certain circles. And it was very difficult for me to say no to that and to still drive a 2001, Pontiac, while turning down that stuff, right? And this isn't about me, but like, how many people do you know that have an engineering degree from one of the top technical institutions and an MBA who landscaped on the side for their friend's mom for $100? Now, I'm not saying you should go do that. What I'm saying is that is the resolve that you're going to need if you really want to be a lifter, because I care that much about what I'm doing in the world, not just what I'm being paid. And I have a feeling that Kevin and I will be paid far beyond what we once were. I know we will. Because we won't quit, because now we're doing something to help other people that we believe in so deeply that even though it feels like we're losing along the way, we're actually winning on the macro. And the last thing I'll say here is this. We got 5 minutes left. I see some people from my past who are very, very, very successful. Okay. Like very successful, but they're not as fulfilled as Kevin and I. And it's not because they're not as successful. It's because what they're doing to make their money, they don't really care that much about. And I don't think they have as much of an impact on others. And I'm not going to be specific here, but I noticed this recently about someone who does way better than us financially, but you can kind of tell that it's like just for the money. And that's fine. And I've been there. Okay. If you're lifting other people's up and getting paid to do it, ride that train into the stratosphere of your dreams. That is where you'll be fulfilled and successful, even though you're going to have to be less successful temporarily during the beginning of the journey. Because remember, you're starting the compound effect over. The compound effect of the corporate America stuff, that started in high school, college, master's degree, all the jobs, internships, right? So that $250,000 job offer came from a compound effect that I started in technically middle school, okay? I had to restart the compound effect at 26, and we're 4 years in, right? So I was 12 years into that other journey with that big result. Don't lose sight of the fact that you might have to restart. Now, did we restart completely? Of course not. I still have all those skills, Excel, all that stuff, numbers, right? But you are kind of restarting if you're chasing your dreams, and just understand that, lifting other people up and getting paid to do it is the best thing in the world.
And just to go back to point number 5, pain of the trade-off comes first, right? Like we traded. When I talk about how passionate I am, I get fired up, like especially to people who question me because they don't understand. And again, it's not about me, but I traded in my entire old life for this, and I would not take it back in a moment. I have to be a lifter, non-negotiable. Like I love when people DM me. I love that. It's the best thing in the world that's our job, and we get to do that every day. So it's on us to make sure that we don't take advantage of that. It's on us to make sure that we don't ever take that for granted. And we show up every day and give the best of us. So if you can find a way, and maybe you're not yet, right? Maybe you're not a lifter. Maybe you're trying to get there. Just start with one person. Literally, like buy coffee for the person behind you in the drive-thru. It'll make their day. Maybe it's that to start. Like I used to do that all the time. I used to help people on Facebook before I was a coach, before the podcast was a thing. Like I just wanted to help. If you want to help, you can make that your life. The problem is, in the early stages, you're going to have to help yourself and other people. And it's hard. It's hard, but it's so worth it. It's the most worth it thing I've ever done in my entire life.
100%. Okay. And when you buy that coffee, it'll make your day as well.
Yes.
It won't just make their day. It'll make your day.
Fire.
Strong work, man.
Fire. It goes by quick. It goes by quick. Amy,
take us on out of here.
Take us on out of here.
Okay.
Sweating.
I know. I'm too, man. It's hot in here. It's cold.
Alan and Kevin are doing free 30-minute calls for either podcasting or business. And Tiff is also doing a free 30-minute call for anyone who is looking to redesign their website or to make a website. And the room opens at 5:30 for everyone to connect before the mastermind.
So we are, as you guys know, we're going through a rebrand right now. So Hyperconscious Nation will now be Next Level Nation. Mm-hmm. The Hyperconscious podcast will be, I don't know yet, because we got to figure out what website's not taken. We are like totally winging this and doing a bunch of other things at the same time, but that's how it has to be sometimes. And what else was I going to say?
It'll be nextlevel.com. We think.
Oh, also, if you guys haven't left us a review on Apple, if you could do that, it would genuinely mean the world, because the more reviews we have, the more people that'll see it and say, oh, wow, all these people like this. That's my jam. So if you would do that for us, we'd appreciate that. And as always, if you guys need anything, please reach out. Facebook, Instagram. If you have my number, text me. We love you guys. We don't have fans. We have family. And now we are on our way to next level life.
Next level you. And those reviews don't have to be long. Just speak from the heart. We're not expecting anything, grand. So
and if
thank
we suck,
you so much.
You can just tell us that too.
Yeah, if we suck, you can tell us that as well. As long as it's 5 stars.
Yes.
I'm kidding.
Thank you guys as always.
Thank you all.